Hello, dear friends. There is a tide in the affairs of men which, taken at its peak, leads to fortune, said Shakespeare. Opinion piece, clear signs, trial period, global hostility, the world reacts, global energy crisis, alleviating suffering. Let's start. The signs are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. According to Jerry Gomez, something has changed in the atmosphere. You can feel it even if you don't yet know what it is. When the source has a plan, it's better to follow it than to force it. The debate has changed. Issues that were previously kept on the sidelines have been brought into the public discourse. Enough for people to begin to feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. God has not abandoned us. Miracles work in mysterious ways, and at times we cannot always choose. You are not alone in this. Darkness still clings to the old, failed system as we move into a golden age. New alliances are forming, and institutions are being subjected to scrutiny and pressure. Periods of change can be unsettling. However, history shows that humanity adapts, learns, and evolves. We have already lived through many periods of transformation. The moment we are living in now offers us an unprecedented connection to the world. In mystical perception, everything is connected. It may seem that we are caught in a storm, but calm waters are always near if we know how to navigate them. Reset. We are at a crucial testing point between two monetary eras. The financial reset is not a conspiracy theory. It is a public agenda. Its final form will depend in part on the level of information available to the public before the transition is complete. The financial system has been sending increasingly difficult to justify warning signals. The soaring debt, persistent inflation, strain in the banking sector, and the rapid development of central bank digital currencies in plural, raise questions about financial sovereignty. The world is at war, but it is a different kind of war, one that involves financial systems, assets, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and kinetic and spiritual elements. As the pressure mounts on the warring factions, tactics and objectives seem shrouded in the dense fog of war. Hostility. According to Derek Naus, we are entering an era of global hostility. This situation has been brewing for some time. It is what some indigenous people described as a conflict over materiality. It was unavoidable. It is a cyclical process, as the great galactic convergence topples the old construct of reality, which then rises to the surface of society. However, there is a path of light that runs through all of this. As dense, dark, and disconcerting as it may seem, it is nothing new. Hindus call this period Kali Yuga, where the toxicity of the old structure becomes decrepit before collapsing. The Hopi refer to this deconstruction as a spiritual conflict with material matters. We are in the collapse of the structure, the end of times. The structure in which we live is based on systemic suffering, rich and poor, poverty and greed, gain and loss, rulers and the ruled. It goes back to the origins of Homo sapiens through an alien intervention in the Garden of Eden. We are on the verge of a return home, and this conflict with the material world will provide the opportunity for salvation. Abyss. The global energy market is teetering on the brink of collapse as the last shipment of liquefied natural gas that managed to depart from the Persian Gulf before the conflict reached port, according to the Financial Times. The ships that left the region will complete their journeys in the next 10 days, marking the end of a regular flow from the Ras Laffan complex in Qatar, the world's largest natural gas export hub, which has suffered damage from missile and drone attacks. Structural damage to Qatari facilities and insecurity on shipping routes pose a scenario of supply shortages. Middle East. The Middle East is on the verge of a total explosion, says Turkey. Arguing that it is too late to negotiate, in quotes, Tehran rejected the ceasefire proposal. Trump threatens to attack Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened. Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz if its power plants are attacked. Mines, speedboats, and missiles threaten the Strait of Hormuz. Israel launches large-scale attacks against Tehran. Israel begins operation to separate southern Lebanon. Netanyahu calls on the rest of the world to join the war against Iran. Trump's approval rating has fallen to a record low. Economy. Asian markets fall and oil surpasses $111 per barrel. The war could drive oil prices up to $180 per barrel, media warn. Major bankers warned of the coming global crisis. The world reacts. Emergency measures are activated in response to the global energy crisis. The West cannot do without Russian energy resources, according to an expert. Thailand declares its willingness to buy oil from Russia. U.S. public debt reaches a new record exceeding $39 trillion. Billions in historical heritage destroyed by war. Goodbye to the Persian Gulf's dream of replacing oil with artificial intelligence. JP Morgan implements technology to monitor the working hours of junior bankers. George F. Smith argues that central banks are funding the collapse of civilization. Europe. Switzerland holds arms shipments to the US due to its neutrality in the conflict. Weapons shipment stopped. The European Commission considers desalination expensive and energy intensive. Without oil or gas, Europe can enjoy the success of its Russophobic agenda. Isolation is leading the EU to bankruptcy, warns the Hungarian Prime Minister. Spain. Diesel fuel becomes more than 30% more expensive. The IBEX hits a new low for the year after falling a further 2%. The stock market reached its lowest point of the year after losing another 2%. Architects are calling for the construction of approximately 246,000 homes per year and a review of their tax treatment. Pedro Sánchez announces a freeze on rents in Spain. House rents, I mean. Sanchez calls for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened because the world should not have to pay for war. The People's Party, PP, is calling for the reinstatement of reserve military personnel and improved working conditions to address staff shortages. Cajamar will strengthen its workforce with more than 360 professionals. Spain expels the Nicaraguan ambassador in response to the expulsion of the Spanish ambassador in Managua. The Spanish Public Prosecutor's Office closes the investigation against Julio Iglesias. Shakira says a stadium will be built in Spain for her concerts. Americas. Another nationwide blackout is reported in Cuba due to the collapse of the electrical grid. Cuba begins efforts to restore electricity. Cuba believes it would be naive not to prepare for a U.S. military intervention. Cuba gifts an AKM rifle to singer-songwriter Silvio Rodriguez. Padrino López acknowledged that he made difficult decisions with unavoidable consequences during his tenure as minister. Colombia registers record levels of public debt. Bogotá hosts the 10th Summit of Heads of State and Government of CELAC. A shipment of rare earth elements valued at $1.5 million is seized in Colombia. 35% of Uruguayans feel unsafe walking alone at night. Milei points out that uncontrolled migration disrupts social order. The Argentine meat industry is experiencing one of its worst periods in 47 years. Inflation in Argentina is expected to close the first quarter of the year above 9%, 9% exactly. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.